And welcome to Fox News Sunday Panel Plus with Brit Hume, Kirsten Powers, Bill Kristol, and Jeff Zeleney. Jeff, let me start with you and kind of an overview. Where is this race now in terms of the electoral map, in terms of issues, in terms of money? And you can go through. Let's start with the electoral map. Where's this race now?
I think the electoral map is surprisingly the same as it was months ago, with the one exception of Wisconsin has moved a little bit more into the battleground territory. But look at where these candidates are traveling. Right after their conventions, they're focusing on Ohio and Florida, not surprisingly. But if the Romney campaign is probably most worried about Ohio of all the big states, those 18 electoral votes are critical. And there's something about Ohio that has flummoxed the Romney campaign a little bit. They thought they would be doing better there. Republicans had a big resurgence in Ohio in 2010. They have a Republican governor, but the economy in Ohio is actually getting better. The unemployment rate is 7.2%, and that has created a bit of a mixed message and a problem. So of all the places that the Romney campaign is focused on, Ohio is at the top of the list, and then Florida, I would say, right after that. But our battleground is really pretty small. We're talking about 8 or 9 states probably are toss-ups. After this convention, we'll see if North Carolina remains a toss-up or not, or if Democrats will sort of let that slide. The Obama campaign will have to make decisions on where to spend money because they will be outspent and outraised here. So from Nevada to Colorado to Iowa to Wisconsin, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, New Hampshire, those are the states where we're going to see the campaign play out here.
Before we move on, let me just ask you about money, because the Romney camp feels that the Obama campaign made a big mistake, at least they say so, using so much money between when he became, in effect, the Republican nominee in April and now. And yes, they did help define him and stuff, but they outspent even what they were raising. And the Republicans now have a $60 million advantage. Do you think money is going to be a big factor in this final 2 months of the campaign?
I think both sides are going to have enough money to get their messages out. At some point, there's going to be, I would think, a point of diminishing returns here in television ads. There's so much noise and confusion out there. So there was no question the Obama campaign took a gamble by spending so much money this summer, but I think it was probably a smart gamble, win or lose, in a couple months, because they did define Governor Romney and sort of had him on his heels. But that's not only where the Obama campaign is spending its money. They're spending so much money in an old-fashioned ground way, all these brick-and-mortar offices across the country. We'll see if they built too big of an organization for what they really need here. But in terms of advertising, I think that the Obama campaign will have enough money to get its ads on the air.
Bill, what would you add or alter to what Jeff said?
No, I really agree with that, and I think it will be a national debate, however, for the next 2 months. And I think we can say I'm just fascinated by all the state-by-state stuff, and they're outperforming a little bit in the upper Midwest, the Romney campaign, underperforming a little bit in Virginia and Ohio, and it's interesting why that might be. Different economic facts, maybe social issues, I think, hitting a little more in Wisconsin, Minnesota, some of those more socially conservative, Iowa, Midwestern states. But it will be, it is one nation, as Governor Romney said last week, and I think President Obama's slogan here is what, come together or something. And there will be these big debates. I think we shouldn't lose sight of those. If we're looking ahead, there'll be a ton of ads, there'll be a ton of micro-targeting. At the end of the day, 50, 60 million Americans are going to watch those 3 presidential and 1 vice presidential debate. And there is a history of those debates moving numbers, at least for a while. They've taken races that were 4 or 5 points apart and moved them very close, for example, or broken them open a little bit. I think that first presidential debate, I think it's October 3rd, is the day, the most important day after this week for the next 2 months.
But the key to that, though, is, because I'm thinking back to 1980 and Reagan-Carter, people had decided they really didn't want Jimmy Carter as president, and when they saw Reagan, they were reassured and thought, he'd be okay in the Oval Office, and they moved in droves to Reagan. I don't have much doubt that Romney will show he's a credible president. The question becomes, are people going to be disillusioned that they want to make a change with Obama?
Yeah, I think people like to compare Obama to Carter, but he's not Jimmy Carter, and I don't think people feel about him the way people felt about Jimmy Carter. I think people obviously they're upset about the job situation, and they have some reservations, but they ultimately, they don't see him as a weak leader per se. So, and in terms of the campaign stuff, I don't think the Obama campaign made any kind of gamble, actually. What they did was exactly the right thing. They have defined Romney in a way that he now has to dig himself out of this hole. Even the likability numbers that I was quoting earlier are incredibly low. And so people already have a fixed idea of who Romney is, and he now has to come in and convince them he's not the person, the vulture, the corporate raider guy that he's been defined at. And it's a lot harder to tell your story when you're having to go against a story that's already been told.
Brit?
Question is,
how do you see this campaign? What do you see it turning on?
Well, I see this campaign as either being like 1980 or more like 2004. 1980, of course, you had very negative conditions in the country, and the president whose record was nothing to crow about. And the race remained, after the Democratic convention, very close for a long time, and then, as Bill mentioned, it broke late for Reagan, and people went to him in droves when they decided he was an acceptable alternative. That acceptable alternative is what Mitt Romney has been trying for now some time to show that he is. If the race is more like 2004, which is what I think the Obama camp hopes, where George W. Bush's campaign did this masterful job of turning out every single voter who could possibly have been counted on to vote for him. It was the greatest voter turnout effort in history because the Democrats had their best, and the incumbent, in kind of mixed conditions, squeaked by. And I think that by the margin of, 116,000 votes in the state of Ohio. You look at the way the Obama campaign has been going, appealing point by point to the elements of their base to try to see if they can rally them all for one last try for the president, and I think they're very much hoping it'll end up like 2004. I don't think we know yet.
Well, to be continued. Thank you all, panel. Please check in with us throughout the week and let us know what you think about what this campaign is going to be like. Check in with us at FoxNewsSunday.com. Give us your opinions, and we'll see you back in Washington, happily, next Sunday.